Don't talk about it like you're in a law review article or you're talking to another attorney. Take it and make it simple.
Welcome to The Legal Edge, where we dive into what actually drives law firm growth. I'm your host, Rob Rosasco, and today we're talking with someone who's done something that most attorneys would simply write off as impossible. He's built a YouTube channel with nearly 500,000 subscribers while simultaneously running multiple law firms. And the kicker? His law firm clients don't need anything like that kind of scale in order to generate life-changing revenue from their video. Our guest is Jeff Hampton, founder of YouTube Rainmakers and managing partner of the Hampton Law Firm in Fort Worth, Texas. Jeff has his JD and a bachelor's in marketing, and he spent the last 15 years proving that YouTube isn't just for influencers, it's a serious client acquisition engine for law firms of any size. His Hampton Law Firm YouTube channel pulls 18 to 20 million views a month and generates millions in revenue annually. Jeff, welcome to The Legal Edge.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm excited to be here.
Good. All right, before we really dive in and get tactical, I want to go back to the beginning. Jeff, you're a practicing attorney who's built one of the largest YouTube channels in the country and then turned that into an agency teaching other lawyers to do the same thing. That's not a typical path for most attorneys, so let's discuss how you got started. You've got a JD and a marketing degree, as I just mentioned. Was YouTube always a part of the plan, or did you just sort of happen upon YouTube at some point in your career?
No, it wasn't always part of the plan. I always knew when I went to law school, I knew I wanted to run my own law firm. I've kind of had an entrepreneurial itch since I was a teenager. I used to run a lawn business and a bunch of other small little things that I would do as a kid. But it really only came into play in 2020 for me because during the pandemic, everything shut down. And I was sitting there looking at it saying, all of the attorneys are out here trying to compete on Google for SEO. And it's just this red ocean that everybody's cannibalizing each other. The price per click continues to go up. It gets harder and harder. And so I looked over at YouTube though, which I learned was the second largest search engine in the world. And I said, wait a minute, there's like 2 or 3 as opposed to 60 or 70 that are on YouTube. And that's when I realized, okay, I owe it to the firm and myself to start looking into this and figuring it out. And that became the beginning of the journey where very quickly I was able to gain some traction because no one else was doing it. And I was looking where someone else wasn't looking, basically.
Okay. And that's something we preach to our clients all the time, especially when it comes to marketing. You know, when you talk about ranking on Google, you look for keywords that aren't necessarily, the competition isn't necessarily that great. So trying to get someplace that someone else isn't. So yeah, that makes a great deal of sense. So it was in 2020 then that you realized that video wasn't just simply, or YouTube specifically, wasn't just for visibility, for, you know, great looking or well put together videos. It was also a client acquisition tool. Is that accurate?
So for me, what I did is when I started looking at YouTube and I realized there wasn't very many attorneys on there, at first I thought, well, that's either because it's just not going to be useful, it's not going to work, or because it's early in the game. And so I started looking at the statistics and I saw how fast YouTube was growing, even how fast YouTube TV was growing. And then I realized it's quickly becoming one of the top media platforms. So I got started. I started putting out really more search-based videos at first, where I was covering practice area content that I knew that I could cover the next thing we're going to talk about down the road. We're going to talk about leveraging this type of video content on your website for conversions. But when I started playing with that, I knew a little bit about SEO. I had played the game of going in and understanding and really researching and diving in, becoming a student of marketing. And I said, well, why can't you do that on YouTube? And so I knew it was going to be a little different. I just needed to figure out what that difference is, what that idiosyncrasy is between that platform. And that's when I dove in, and it was only a few months. I would say 3 months of putting out content. And here's what's key. Most people quit before they get the result. So They'll put out 3 or 4 videos and they'll say, oh, it didn't work, so I'm not going to do this anymore. Yeah, but I made a commitment. I was going to do this for 6 months. No matter what happened, I was going to put out this and become obsessed with the process rather than the result.
Okay.
And I became obsessed with the process. And I got into about halfway through month 3.5, 4 range. And I got a phone call. Guy called in and said, hey, you know, I watched a YouTube video where someone was talking about X, Y, and Z. What I learned was you get a 30 to 40% increase in your close rate for a YouTube viewer because they've already watched you. They've already felt like they kind of knew who you were. there's this understanding where all of a sudden you're kind of elevated in their view in terms of credibility. And that's when I knew at that moment, I was like, okay, it's time to double down and figure out where this goes.
What made you decide to take that additional step then and launch YouTube Rainmakers and begin teaching other attorneys the model that you built or created?
Yeah, so it was not anything I'd ever thought about previously, but honestly, I was just busy growing my channel. Once the channel really got traction, got up, over 500,000 subscribers, things started really getting going. I had an attorney a few years ago reach out to me, and he's in Oklahoma, and he's still a client of mine right now. And he reached out and he said, Jeff, what is it going to take to work with you? Right. I said, well, what do you mean? I don't work with people, right? I'm just running my YouTube channel. He said, no. You figured out how to do this. I want to learn how to do it. So he offered to write me a $50,000 check. He goes, I'll give you 50 grand if you can show me how to do this. And I said, no, my wife's like, but you love doing this stuff. So why don't you try it? See? So that's what became kind of the brainchild of the consulting side of YouTube Rainmakers at first. And so I would consult with people. I would help train them and help them learn how to do things like write great scripts, how to come up with good titles and thumbnails, which almost no one in the legal industry has any idea how to do. And then as we started going through that, after a while, he said, this is awesome, but I'd rather you just do it for me. And he goes, what if you just do all of this and I record? And that's what led to our full agency model for a done for you, as well as a consulting approach that we do. And so that really, because of the demand that came from the industry, I'll still have attorneys sending me emails, trying to reach me through my firms, wanting to work, even if they haven't heard of my YouTube Rainmakers business, because they want to figure out a way to learn how to do this. And there's not very many resources to go to for YouTube.
Right. So the attorney in Oklahoma that reached out to you, did you know him prior to that phone call?
Did not.
So he just saw your channel and said, this guy knows what he's doing. I want him to help me.
Yeah, which I loved, a very entrepreneurial thing to do, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm over here. I'm not a competitor to him. I'm going to reach out and see. There's no risk. All the worst he can say is no. So I loved it from the beginning because I thought this is my kind of guy. And then the second part was I love YouTube. So my passion is really YouTube. And I'm still, I'm launching videos from my channels all the time, every week, sometimes multiple videos. So I'm entrenched in this. So those changes that happen to the platform, I'm able to help attorneys as they're wanting to put out content so that they can build their brand and start getting calls.
All right. So very cool. So you manage multiple law firms, Hampton Law Firm, FH Law Group, STR Law Guys. How does YouTube and your approach to YouTube fit into those individual firms?
So particularly, STR Law Guys, we're a very niche business. It's like an asset protection firm for Airbnb owners for short-term rentals. And I myself own a portfolio of Airbnbs as passive investments. So it became a natural thing where I started creating some content, and this content approach is very different. This is what we call helpful content. This is trust building content where I'm leveraging the law of reciprocity. I will give away amazing information to a viewer where the viewer feels like, man, I usually have to pay for this. Instead, I give that information away, and then basically they buy the implementation because they hear what I'm saying and they're like, I got to work with this guy because he knows what he's talking about. And that's really the big missing component most attorneys never get when it comes to social media or YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
So when you ask how it integrates, I started experimenting by saying, what do I know? What is my expertise? What are the areas that I can empower people with? And I'm listening to the audience. What is their feedback? What is the thing that bothers them? Not just what I want to talk about. What is the thing that concerns them? And when I started sharing that, what I noticed was I didn't have to worry about subscribers. I just give away this information, and the viewers, they're going to subscribe. They're going to reach out because of the overwhelming value they receive.
So you just said something else that was actually very interesting that I guess as a marketer, I didn't necessarily, think a great deal about it, but you mentioned you listen to people who watch your videos, and obviously they offer you feedback through comments.
That's right. Well, one of the best ways to do that, the easiest thing to do there is use LLMs, use Claude, ChatGPT. Like I'll have videos that I'll have 10,000 comments. So what I'll do is I'll take all 10,000 of those comments, feed it into AI, and say, provide me the sentiment of the viewer here. Is there a pattern of types of questions that people are asking? What are the pain points? What are areas I could have done a further explanation on, or ideas for future videos that could further address whatever concerns my audience has. And AI, of course, does a great job of that. It comes back, you get all the sentiment there. The real thing I learned about YouTube, people focus on the end result too much. They're trying to get 1 million views or whatever. But in reality, if you just focus on the audience more, if you're hyper focused on the audience, the views take care of themselves.
Okay. Now, when you say hyper focused on the audience, elaborate, expound on that a little bit.
So what is YouTube? YouTube cares about two things. It cares about getting you on the platform, right? By predicting what you're going to want to watch. And then they want to keep you on the platform. So what I do is I might have ideas of things I want to talk about, but I want to look and see how long are the viewers staying on that video. If they're not staying on very long, this may not be a good subject for me to cover. I need to be listening to not only to the comments, but looking at the performance of the video. But then I also want to know the audience. There's a way to do some market analysis to really look at what other attorneys in my field are doing content like this. Are they doing it differently? How is it? What's working right now on YouTube? And there's a great book. If you have time to go read the book, Steal Like an Artist. It's an amazing book because it basically outlines that every great artist took from their predecessors the best aspects of what they did, and then did a value add to what those predecessors did, plus personality. That equals new content every time. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So for me, what I want to do is see what's working, not just what people are watching for my channel, but YouTube. If you learn YouTube Studio, it will show you the other channels that your viewers watch. It'll show you the kind of content that they watch, what they're focused on. And that will tell you a lot of information about the audience behavior. And it makes it easier for you to predict what they want to watch, what they want to see.
Right. Thus helping you with your future content.
That's right. Yeah. And so I want to craft that, right? Because there's really two strategies here. One is search-based, second largest search engine in the world, which is great. You can create really good search-based content. But once you get to about, I would say 6,000 to 10,000 subscribers, it's really time to grow past the search-based content and really try to go towards what they call the browse and suggested video viewers. Okay. And that is the algorithm. The algorithm now will serve it up for you. In other words, these algorithms are so unbelievable at predicting what you want to watch and when you don't even know what you want to watch. and they're so good at it that once you get to know that audience and you tap into that, the algorithm becomes your friend. You don't feel like you're always fighting against it. Mm-hmm. And that's why what I'm talking about now is so important, to get to know your audience and what they really want to see.
Interesting. Let's sort of dive into the nitty-gritty now. You mentioned this earlier. A lot of law firms have experimented with videos, shot, a handful of videos, worked on it for a few weeks, a few months, and then just simply walked away because they didn't get anything out of it. Jeff, I want to discuss what actually separates firms that generate signed cases from YouTube versus the ones that just try to collect views but don't really convert them into clients.
This is a great question, because I know some people on TikTok right now getting tens of millions of views and they're broke. Okay. They have no money, right? And they make no money. But when you talk about YouTube, one classic example of this is STR Law Guys, the channel. I don't get anywhere near the views because my audience is so niche, so hyper specific, but it's not about the number of views. It's about getting the right eyeballs. So I tell attorneys, imagine being able, for STR Law Guys, imagine being able to stand in front of a group of 500 people to share how they can protect their high net worth assets because they're worth a lot of money. And I talk about this, and I have a chance to convert them from my content for a 15-minute video or a 10-minute video. You would pay to stand in front of 500 people to do that, knowing there's a good chance you could convert them. Well, that's what your YouTube video does. I have videos right now that have only had 500 views on the STR Law Guys channel, but I've literally had people call in and say, my goodness, I've been looking for a solution to this, and you just provided this to me. I've had a lot of CPAs literally send me business from watching my videos and saying, we need asset protection people that know what they're doing. We're going to start referring you people. And so it becomes a lot of other professionals who are looking for these solutions, but for their current clients, and they find it also through YouTube. And so finally, the best example of this is an attorney who did a traumatic brain injury video on an ATV video, talking about ATV accidents, and only got literally a couple hundred views, signed up an 8-figure ATV accident case, right? So why? Because you got people searching for it. And when they do search for it, the algorithm also may suggest or serve up your video as one of the videos that goes along with what they're watching. That's the power of this. And it's literally evergreen. Once you start getting traction here, I have videos from 5 years ago that are still getting search views and algorithm views that just every 6 to 8 weeks, we sign up a new client from it because people see it and they want to follow back up on it and they call in to hire. So
That's great. It really is. And it's really hitting home with me considering, what we do. Okay. So now the flip side, what's the biggest mistake you see law firms make when they try to get their YouTube channel up and running?
they want to chase views. They want to do anything they can to they think winning is either going viral or getting views at any cost. This is the biggest mistake because even people who say they're disciplined fall for this. So, I had a guy who, gave him some advice on how to improve his channel. And then he went out and he started creating content about like the best chicken Parmesan in all the cities he visits. Right. And he got views on that. But I said, that has nothing to do with what you do. Right. And he's like, yeah, I know, but I'm getting all these views and I'm sure they'll care about my personal injury content. I'm like, no, they won't. They will not. The people who care about chicken Parmesan in Denver are not the same people who care about your personal injury issue going on. And so what happens is, here's why this is a mistake, because you split your audience. The algorithm thinks now you're about chicken Parmesan in all these cities, or they think you're about your actual law firm, and there becomes this confusion and you end up getting very mid-level results or worse for anything you put out.
Yeah. Which just means a quick exit from YouTube and or using video because it doesn't work in their opinion.
And they quit. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Let's talk about content strategy. What types of videos, in your opinion, actually drive new clients, drive intake versus types of videos that are just vanity videos? You kind of hit on one talking about videos that have nothing to do with your business, but what are other types of videos that specifically work to drive clients and those that, they're just looking for views, vanity type videos?
Some of the very best, if you're disciplined and you understand you're playing the long game for YouTube, some of the very best videos you can create are practice area videos where you're covering these points. I mean, if you do, and here's what's key, if you're going to do this for your firm, always integrate your sales lawyer. Whoever's taking the sales calls to close this business, you've got to integrate them into your YouTube strategy because they're the ones listening to the prospective client all day.
Yeah.
They're listening to them and they're hearing what their pain points are, the things that are of concern. And what I would do is literally record, if you're like the managing partner, record that sales attorney's phone calls, put it through AI, identify, you're going to see a lot of repeatable things that they're being discussed. And then essentially you want to create practice area videos that mirror what kind of sales call you would have if they were sitting in front of you. Yep. So I tell people, look at the camera like you're looking at your ideal client's face. And you need to talk to them like you'd be talking in a consultation call where you're providing information. Well, you need to know this. Here's the things you got to be aware of on this. This is why this matters. But you don't make it a consultation. It's not I say this, you don't make it a sales call. It's not a sales call. It's very much I'm going to empower you with information. And I want you to leave here knowing you're in good hands, or you know what to do if you decide you don't want to be in good hands, right? There's no expectation. The utmost confident thing you can do is to say, I don't need your business. I'm here to actually help you. And when you give that information away and treat it like a consultation and then loop people in to the next issue or topic that they will be concerned with. Like for instance, if you're doing a DWI, you might have a license suspension video at the beginning because that's one of the biggest concerns. And then talk about what happens at your first court date or what happens at this next thing. It creates this journey where people will want to watch multiple videos and they just start to look at it and say, I got to work with this person. And they're all search-based. So that when you say that strategy right there is one where, like my aggravated assault video that's made me over $1.3 million since I launched it, that video is going to just sit out there evergreen for years, right? And it's going to continue to bring in business. That's the kind of content I would do if I was starting a YouTube channel. If you're just trying to figure out how to get started, make those practice area videos. Then I did 100 of those before I started going broader, okay? I literally just did 100 practice area videos. And then when I ran out of practice areas, like I don't have any other practice areas, there's nothing else to talk about, I started talking about general Fourth Amendment issues and Fifth Amendment issues and areas that I knew that complemented those practice areas. So that's what I would do. And it's a little bit different for each person's practice.
Right. You just said two things. One, the phrase you use, sales lawyer. As a practicing attorney, I'm sure your perspective on that phrase is different than mine. It sounds like it's a lot closer to mine than most other attorneys, but I'm curious, when you use that phrase, do you use that phrase with other attorneys? And typically, what kind of feedback do you get when you describe an attorney within the firm as the sales attorney?
I get a lot of negative feedback.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I self-identify as an entrepreneur who happens to be a lawyer. I'm just going to tell you that
Okay.
right now.
Yep.
Okay. So people say, "Oh, well, you're a lawyer and all this stuff." No, 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 no. No one taught me any of this stuff in law school. No one talks about any of this stuff in law school. So most attorneys come out of law school complete idiots when it comes to business.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
so when that's the case, I help people understand that in other businesses, other niches, like other areas outside of law, you've got a sales department. You have people who that's what they do and they're really good at it.
Mhm.
And for me, when I have those conversations with people, they'll say, no, I'm not a sales lawyer, or we don't have a sales lawyer. But I can tell you, if you focus on your intake, in addition to your marketing, but if you focus on your intake and you have a good sales lawyer that can refine the process and do a good job of relating and improving how they're able to convey what your unique abilities are or your unique attributes are for your firm, you'll see a huge jump in your revenues as opposed to treating sales as an afterthought.
The other thing you said actually that caught my attention was, I mean, obviously generating $1.3 million in revenue is a good thing on its own, but the fact that you could directly attribute that revenue to a specific video, the value of that must be immeasurable. And being able to convey the need to know that to others, just in terms of general marketing, but specifically with YouTube and videos, must be worth its weight in gold. So I'm assuming
Yeah.
that's something you enforce in your law firm clients or lawyer clients.
Yeah. And this is real important because people, I mean, and rightly so, people could challenge me on it and say, how do you know? Well, first of all, we have a very robust CRM with an intake team, and that sales software system that we use with a very well-trained intake team that knows when you get a call, first of all, we want to see where it's attributed to. But in today's world, attribution is tricky. It's more contribution than attribution. And the reason why is because someone might watch one of my YouTube videos right now, and then they might go do a search for me on Google. And they'll pull up my Google business profile and they'll see a bunch of 5-star reviews, 4.9 overall. And now they may call from the GBP profile, right? It would look like someone just found me through the maps. But in reality, what ends up happening is my staff says, well, sir, what was it specifically that drew you to call in today? Well, is there something that you saw? Oh, yeah, I watched that YouTube video, man. I saw him talking about X, Y, and Z. So we're marking and making sure that when people see that video, people usually always remember it. And they're a different kind of call in because their energy, their mindset and expectation after watching that video are different than a cold lead who just saw something from a local service ad or a pay-per-click ad would have. And so that's how we're able to attribute that and being very disciplined about marking that in our CRM.
Okay. How important is intake when it comes to effectively managing marketing as a whole, but again, specifically YouTube videos?
Oh, it's probably one of the most overlooked areas that attorneys neglect. They'll get hyper focused on the number of leads they have coming in or what their marketing might look like because it may not feel like it's working. But I analogize it to people saying, look, if you don't over focus, like you need to hyper focus on your intake team. We record every call. We do random audits. We go back in and take a look and listen to those calls over time to make sure, are we converting? Is there follow up? All the things that need to be done. If you don't do that, then it's like it's like trying to fill a bucket with holes in the bottom.
Yeah.
Right. And I usually find, not that I do a bunch of personal consulting or professional consulting with attorneys on that, but I tell them, they're saying, well, we're getting calls, but we're not getting conversions. I said, have you checked your intake? What's going on with your intake team? Oh, I'm sure it's fine. You haven't checked your intake team. So that's one of the biggest areas that I see attorneys just don't think about.
And we profess the same to our clients. So, Jeff, you didn't just build a YouTube channel or YouTube channels, successful, effective YouTube channels. You built a repeatable system that attorneys can integrate into their marketing strategies. YouTube Rainmakers is effectively a productized method. Let's discuss a little bit about what's inside that system so any attorneys or firms listening today can understand what that actually looks like in practice. So if you wouldn't mind, walk us through what a firm or their video usage looks like in month 1 versus month 6 when they're working with your YouTube Rainmakers team.
Yeah. So any client that signs up with us, the first thing we do is I want to do a full market analysis. So we do a search query. We go through and say, okay, first of all, what are the highest keyword based phrases? Like it depends. Like if you're working with immigration attorneys that can cover the whole nation, it's a different strategy than if you're working with a PI lawyer who only covers one state. So
Right.
it depends on the firm. But the first thing we're doing is we're doing deep research and analysis on the market. Who else is doing well? Do you have a big waiter in your market that's already doing well on YouTube? That involves a different strategy. And I have a very specific strategy where I can go in and really using the algorithm and identify a lot of the other attorneys doing what this particular lawyer may want to do. And I create a big spreadsheet market analysis showing all the other attorneys, usually at least the top 10 that are doing this. And we analyze things like the hook, the thumbnail strategy, the call to actions. We're looking at the script writing, all of these things to see, is it sophisticated? And then I will actually meet with the client when we have our onboarding. And one of the things we do is we look at it and we say, month one, we want to get you out of the gate, but we want to also have a mix of broader videos so that people will be able to see you and it kind of builds your brand and your channel so that you get out of the gate. But one of the things I really like to do at the very beginning is also be very strategic. I love to meet with the attorney's SEO team and their website team, because one of the biggest complaints I know that exists, because I'm a lawyer, I see this happening in my own firms in the past, which is one vendor doesn't know what the other vendor's doing here. So let's say you've got like us doing videos, but then you're doing SEO or you're doing other stuff. But if I don't know what the other person's doing, then you can end up stepping on each other's toes, or you're going to have assets that aren't being leveraged properly. So we like to coordinate from the jump on that and start getting these videos strategically on the website for the client and the landing pages. And a lot of our clients also like email marketing campaigns, like, estate planning attorneys and different things like that, where they're nurturing their current client and to get referrals. So that's the very beginning, but I map out a 6-month content plan for the client, and I want to get their approval on it because it's really important. Most firms under the 80-20 principle have 20% of their practice areas making them 80% of the revenue.
Yep.
And I want to make sure we're creating content about areas that are going to make them money. And then I want to know what their frequently asked questions are from their intake people, from people who call in right now, right? And we can cross-reference that with search. So it's a lot of data at the very beginning. And then the number one reason why people quit YouTube or they don't ever get started is they think it's going to take too much time. So our goal is to make sure that they don't have to spend any more than an hour to an hour and a half a month recording for one long form video per week, which they'll batch record for a month, and usually 30 to 50 short form clips that are being repurposed to every platform, not just YouTube. And so the goal is, if the lawyer can get in that cadence of knowing that's when we do this, then they can start putting in the reps and it just becomes a thing that they do. But I've seen so many lawyers start to get traction and they quit right before they were about to get going, right? That's the number one thing. And then they regret it. And then they feel like they have to start over again. So the first 3 months are all about getting good, basically branding-based content out there, but also search-based content, and then leveraging those search-based videos, practice area videos, immediately on their website and their other marketing so that they can start seeing an instant ROI. Okay. That's month 3 and 4. You get past month 6, by then we're hoping we're getting a lot of traction. My goal is to try to get attorneys to say 5,000-6,000 subscribers, not just because subscribers matter. That's not the big thing really, but it's about getting a broader reach and then leveraging that. I have clients who, have an immigration firm that she went from 400 subscribers to basically 5,000 subscribers. She 1,000 extra YouTube channel in 60 days. Well, she immediately started getting calls from news agencies and stuff like that as videos went couple, 250,000 views and different things that went going, longer form videos. It's building her brand generally. And she was getting dozens of new client signups. Sometimes it can happen that fast in the first 60 days. Other times it might take more like in the 4 to 6 month range before you start seeing that traction. But once you have the traction,
Right.
You double down. The audience and YouTube will tell you what's working. So that's a little bit of an idea of how it works.
And you and I both know, and our perspectives may be different than many people, but 4 to 6 months is really not a huge investment of time for something like this. So
we're not even talking about running ads on this. And of course we have some specific systems that we do that are different. We record our video, our scripts are very different than anyone else that's out there. We use certain strategies that I don't see most other attorneys using. But generally, you got to have the attorney buy in to understanding this is an investment that involves recording and getting into a cadence.
Right.
Because I do find sometimes the lawyers are just looking for the silver bullet that will immediately fix all the problems in 30 days.
Yeah.
And I try to remind them that's nowhere, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't exist anywhere. So putting in a little bit of the reps, it's slow, and then all at once it starts to kick in.
Yeah, and we obviously get that all the time too. I mean, they think SEO is the silver bullet, and after 30 days of working on their program, the phone starts ringing. The phone's not ringing. What are you doing? All right, so let's talk a little bit about the actual video product. You mentioned preparing scripts, and I'm curious, sort of two-part question. Share with me a little bit about what a high-performing video looks like from a technical perspective, length, structure. Talk a little bit about hooks and calls to action. And how much of that do you provide your clients as a part of your ongoing service?
Yeah, so the way it works is this. We, for the most part, script the entire video. So we'll research it. And if you watch any of my content, you'll see we include case law, state statutes. I mean, we will provide... Contextually, we provide that because it's authority, it's credibility, and it helps build the brand. But we will take all the scripting, we'll research it all, we'll script the entire video. But when you talk about scripting, the most important parts are the very beginning and the very end. And when I say the very beginning, the first 30 seconds are critical on YouTube. And honestly, it's critical anywhere. We use what we call our 3-step hook script formula that I came up with, which is basically the first sentence needs to grab people with curiosity. The second sentence needs to set the stakes for the viewer. So I might be curious about something, but I have to attach it to why it's going to affect you. And basically, I'm going to set the stakes because if you don't watch this is what it's going to cost you potentially, right? And then the last part of that hook is giving a preview to the grand payoff. So I want them to understand in this video, I'm going to cover X, Y, and Z. And if you don't know what's coming, you'll easily find a reason to jump off the video. But if I tell you what's coming and it's done the right way, then people are going to stick around because I've signposted that there's something that they really going to want to know later on in the video. And then in the middle, it's really important. You don't say more than you have to say, but say what you need to say, get to the point, use great transition. And when you do transitions, you can remind people every time you want to say and 1 and 2 and 3, you don't say and, replace it with but. So even if point number 1 is true, but what happens if this happens? That brings me to point number 2, right? And so in other words, I tied that off with a bow, but what about this? So now I'm invested. I watched this and I listened to what you said, but it may not matter if I don't figure out number 2. So when that type of strategy is used in your script writing, then you get to the very end and we do what we call Netflixing your YouTube channel. And Netflixing, it means we want to create a binge watching effect on your video by not seeing the end of your video as the end of the video. The end of the video is a mini payoff to the next video you have to watch, okay? Meaning, I just gave all this information to you. You watched all the way to the end. But what if instead of the cop covering your porch camera, he refuses to leave your front door? Check out this next video where I'm going to break down your rights and the exact thing you can do, right? So that kind of strategy, if it's used appropriately and you do it the right way, I mean, I saw a 30+% increase in views and traction on my YouTube channel when those type of strategies are implemented. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about, that it's not just throwing together a script, right? There's very much strategy behind it that can make a huge difference in the result.
Okay, so if a solo attorney, an attorney in a 2-attorney, 3-attorney firm, small firm right now is watching this video, who's never used video, they've never posted video, they may not even have a YouTube channel, what should their first move be?
Well, their first move should be, it's real easy to set up a YouTube channel. And I want you to understand the hardest thing to do is to push record, because most people don't want to do it. They'll talk about it, they'll prepare it, and then they record. And then what they'll do is they'll go watch themselves on that and they'll go, I'm never posting them. That's the first thing they'll do. So if you want to feel better about yourself, go watch my earliest videos on YouTube. And they're horrible. They're really bad. But I will not take them down because number one, they're still making money. I'm still getting people calling in, because focus more on what you're delivering as value than on you looking like a natural, like, newscaster or something, right? People don't care about how great you look. People care about the value because they're coming to you from a pain point position. They've got an issue and they're looking for a solution, right? And so to me is getting started and you put out the content. If all you do is record one video and push public on the video and step back. The great thing is the best time to be bad on video is at the very beginning because no one sees you anyway, right? So at the very beginning, no one's watching because it's a brand new channel. So that's the first thing I would do. And the second thing is there are resources out there. Educate yourself on these things and to understand that video is so much more powerful on website, in my opinion, than just a bunch of writing on a website. If you can include content, video content on your other marketing strategies, you immediately see an ROI. Your conversions will go up, your bounce rate will drop. There's so many other positive things that will happen on your website. That's the part where I tell people, even if you never made it on YouTube, whatever that means, you're going to see the effect of what it'll do by creating good content and placing it on your other marketing.
We've been a huge proponent of video since, starting the agency 13 years ago, and even more so today. And it's amazing where you can use video now, in places like a live chat widget, putting a video there increases conversions.
And we didn't even talk about ranking for like AEO, like AI searches. Yeah. YouTube's one of the top 3 resources that a lot of the LLMs pull from to determine whether you should rank for AI search. And, Google owns YouTube. So I see organic YouTube videos showing up in Gemini results and those sort of things that happen all the time.
Yep.
So that's the part where most attorneys just don't understand the ecosystem where YouTube and video can interplay with everything else you do.
Okay. Any conversation about legal marketing has to come back to compliance. There are rules that attorneys have to follow, especially on video. YouTube might feel more informal than other types of advertising, like paid advertising, but obviously bar rules still apply. And not to mention the fact that, of course, attorneys can really get themselves into trouble if they sort of veer off the beaten path when it comes to the bar rules. So you've navigated these yourself across your multiple law firms, and I'm sure you discuss staying within the compliance guardrails with your YouTube Rainmaker clients. So let's talk a little bit about how to stay on the right side of ethics lines while still being able to put out compelling content.
Yeah, I know you're right. And every state is a little different, right? Yeah. And so one of the things I like to do, which is another really good reason why it's great to have a team of vendors that you work with. From the attorney side, a lot of the attorneys that I work with have already done some video. There are some that haven't, but a lot of them have done video, and maybe they've even worked with their current team to do some video, and they've kind of talked about some of those concerns. And every state has a little bit different take on it, where it could be something as simple as listing where your office is, your principal office is. In some states will put that you have to, if you're going to use B-roll or anything like that, you got to do dramatizations. Or of course, if it's an actual commercial and you're soliciting, there's even more scrutiny that I'm seeing there when it's an actual commercial, a direct solicitation.
Right.
So the biggest, broadest thing I do there is, we're looking at it from what rules apply based on what state you're in. And let's have that conversation with the attorneys, and then making sure that their team, especially a lot of the firms that are investing a lot in marketing are kind of already having an idea like, yeah, we already need to be thinking about this because we're already having to deal with the compliance issues with the website and all the other stuff that's out there. And so it is important. I see that as like a checklist item that's part of onboarding that needs to be integrated in with the rest of their marketing team and or their other vendors. Because here's what happens. Sometimes the other teams love the video content, so they'll want to get some of that footage and then they'll use it in other places that I may not even know about. And so you want all teams to know what those concerns are so that there's not just random use of this type of content. Just like you would probably be concerned too if someone else was taking stuff off the website or any other type of content that you have, not knowing if it's going to meet those requirements.
Absolutely.
It's a great point.
Let's talk a little bit about, in your experience, what are some of the biggest compliance landmines that attorneys stumble over, trip over when they first start producing video content?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is not even thinking about it, right? And not even considering it. When you talk about it, really addressing what are the concerns. And most of the attorneys that I talk to have already probably run ads. A lot of the PI lawyers I work with have already run either a TV ad or they've also run other ads, meta ads or other types of ads like that they're putting out there. And they've made submissions on those and they've gotten back things that are the general requirements, which you can get the list of the compliance rules for each state from the get-go. And they're usually just little things, right? They're not big things.
No.
Right? They're very small things. Most of the state bars are not going to limit you from being able to give helpful content. Because if you're just going to give stuff away, it's usually, what are you putting on the screen? It's usually, are you identifying that this isn't a real situation going on right here, or a client, or having attorneys want to start using exact situations from clients without getting consent from the client?
Yeah.
Like they're talking about, hey, I worked with this client here, did this. And we're saying, wait a minute, did you talk to the client, right? Did you have authorization on this? Because that's where one of the big things, and you would think that's simple, like, well, I'm sure they thought about that. And they may even have a testimonial from that client, but did they get their permission to use it as part of that video series or whatever they're putting together? Those are some of the basic, simple things. It's usually not anything major. It's just simple, let me ask the question before I do it.
Yeah.
Type stuff.
Okay. Do you ever find there's a conflict between having to, again, follow those compliance rules, how you handle disclaimers and what you're just referring to, the testimonials, past results language, and the video's overall effectiveness? Is there ever a conflict there?
Things I know there's been a lot of other, it's the legal field is behind it. A lot of those rules don't catch up to technology, right?
Yep.
And everyone knows that B-roll is dramatization, right?
Yeah.
Everyone who looks at it, they know. And the problem is a lot of the stuff that's out there is not, it doesn't keep up with what everyone else already knows. And it's based on 1990s base laws or rules that are out there. So it does a little bit. And I think if those things don't catch up, it becomes a little bit of a headwind, but it's not so bad that it's not something that you can't still gain traction on, because everybody's having to play under those.
Right.
Everyone is still limited under the same constraints, but I don't want it to limit creativity. As long as you meet the checklist box, like if here's the things we got to do, then you don't run into as many of those types of problems, and you can still be creative in how you present your content.
Okay. All right. Okay. So a few rapid fire questions. I've got 5 questions, rapid fire. So just quick replies and, first thing that jumps to mind. And obviously there are no wrong answers. So number 1, what's the biggest misconception that attorneys still have about YouTube?
Broadly, that they think YouTube is not a client acquisition system, and they think I'm not a YouTuber. So why would I need to do YouTube? I'm not a YouTuber. They think that playing the game like everyone else is the way to play the game.
Right.
But it's not.
Okay.
That's the biggest misconception, is they don't even understand the value of the actual platform.
Number 2, where do most attorneys lose a client when they're creating video content for you?
Too much legalese. So if you use too much legalese and you talk down to people in the video, you got to talk to them as an equal, literally use common wording, and take the complex and make it simple. The biggest compliment I can receive from any one of my videos is, man, I love how you take these complex issues and you make them simple and understandable. That's a winning formula. That's the number one thing to do. Don't talk about it like you're in a law review article or you're talking to another attorney. Take it and make it simple.
Yep. Okay. In preparation for our call, watching some of your videos, you absolutely do that, and you do that very well.
Well, thank you.
Question number 3, what's the first thing you look at to tell that a firm is actually ready? It's time. They're ready to scale with video creation in YouTube.
So what I look for is to scale. That's the real question. To scale with YouTube is, number 1, are they spending on marketing? Do they have a marketing plan and a strategy? Are they currently actively in the market creating marketing, right? That's important. Number 2, have they tried video? It's really important. Some people like the idea of video, and then it becomes this obstacle, either through their own pride of how they think they look. If someone's already creating video, but it looks like they're missing strategy, it looks like they're missing how to complement and interact all this together to create it as a true system, that's where I look at someone and say, they're primed.
Okay.
They're ready to really unleash here.
Okay. Now, on the other side, on the flip side of that, what's one red flag when it comes to reviewing an attorney's or firm's strategy on YouTube and recognizing the fact that it's about to fail?
Well, there is, the biggest one is number 1 is chasing views, where I'll see attorneys that might even have some views, but they're posting about all these random things. And so they're not being very detailed. I'm not saying you have to be a one-trick pony, but you have to be real clear what your value proposition is and what content you're bringing. If you try to go super broad in all the other areas, I know they're going to fail if they're creating criminal videos, personal injury videos, estate planning videos, immigration videos. If they're doing 4 other areas of law and they label all of it as I'm a legal channel, you're going to struggle, because the people who care about each one of those areas of law do not care about those other areas of law.
Right.
So people have to get very specific about their value proposition and who their client is.
And lastly, what is the most underrated thing, perhaps the easiest thing to do that a law firm could start doing tomorrow on YouTube that no one else is doing?
Power of story. So a lot of attorneys will get on and rattle off, and there's nothing wrong with having listicle videos and covering like 3 points or these sort of things. But if you can create compelling story, things that have to do with, there's a really good personal injury attorney out there that one of the things that he will do is he will take news stories of things that have happened, right? The $1 million settlement of the Starbucks barista who dumped it into the Uber driver's lap, right? Well, he covered that, but he's doing it as a story and then explaining why that's not a crazy verdict. Even though people think it is, he's educating and elevating his brand. And I see a lot of attorneys not leveraging a story and not getting excited on a video. Like, let me just say this. If you can't get excited about what you do in law, no one else is going to be excited about what you're doing on that video, right? I have some attorneys that get on there, they don't move their hands, they don't raise their voice, they look like they're in a funeral home and the lighting is bad and they're just like, welcome to my, and I'm like, hold on a second. I have to let people know it's not just entertaining, but you do bring energy to the things you care about, right?
Yep.
And so those things I try to encourage and coach lawyers to do. And once they get the feel for that, all of a sudden they starting to see things take.
And that goes back to the sales lawyer.
There you go.
Someone that
right?
is engaging. Yeah, absolutely.
That's right.
All right, Jeff, thank you. This has been a great conversation, really practical conversation. And really, it's exactly the kind of clarity that law firms need when they're considering a video marketing strategy and sizing up their YouTube investment. For attorneys that want to go deeper into video or deeper into YouTube, perhaps even engage with you at YouTube Rainmakers, how can they find you?
Yeah, so you could go to youtuberainmakers.com and you'll see my website. You can also go to LinkedIn, shoot me a direct message there on LinkedIn. You'll see I give away a lot of content. I also have a newsletter that I basically give away a lot of these strategies, especially people that are just getting started on this. And hit me up with any questions. I'm always happy to do that, or we can have a more formal call to discuss whatever that, your needs might be.
All right, I need to subscribe to your newsletter. How can I subscribe to your newsletter?
So if you go to LinkedIn, go to my profile, Jeff Hampton, you'll see I just released one, I think a week ago. You'll see it on the feed.
Okay.
Click, give email, you'll be automatically on the list.
Well, Jeff, thank you. I really appreciate your time and good stuff. Really, really good stuff. And thank you to tuning into The Legal Edge. If today's episode and what Jeff and I discussed today changed how you're thinking about video, and it being a client acquisition tool, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our great content. Really appreciate you watching. See you on the next episode.